Okay. All right. Hello. This is Travis Marker with Steward Growth with America Francis, who's the director of Steward Growth. And we're here today to do Startup Toolbox, which is the session in which we explore ways that individuals can um, make their businesses better, or they can explore startup ideas on, how to start a business, or they can come up with just different income strategies like side hustles. And so, as America and I were preparing for this discussion today, we talked about graduates who are getting ready to maybe get out of college and they're wondering, what's next? And so, America, maybe why don't you pose the question and we will start going.
Okay, I think sometimes people in school follow the syllabus or, they're taking a lot of instruction and then they graduate and they're like, wait, there isn't a defined path for me. Where do I go next with this? And they think maybe I have to get on a rung of a ladder or there's some kind of prescriptive path. And I just wanted to explore how to make adjustments if your path is not working well for you, or if life changes, or if you graduate and all of a sudden there's an economic disruption, or your field is not going the way you thought. Like sometimes things with technology change and your field is not as in demand anymore. Or if you just need extra skills. So just some ways you can adjust and also define your pathway when you don't know where to go with your job, your path. I think a lot of women actually face this because they graduate in a particular thing and then they take some time off, they take a break. And so they're not on the same track that other people in their field might have been on. They might not have the internships and then the beginning jobs and then the next jobs up. It's just not as defined. So a lot of women probably face these issues.
Well, I think if I can kind of play with some of the things that you're saying, I think that women who would fall, like for example, in the Utah culture, they might go on a mission, or they might get married, or they might have a baby, and those would definitely be disruptive, elements.
Yeah.
Um, my impression though is I think more women are graduating college than men, more. So what you're talking about could be a former problem, but it's still a problem. But the question about whether it's more than men, I think more men are out than than women. But I think the just because women are showing that they're more ambitious, they're more driven, there's a greater desire to not be bound by stereotypes or to a man, etc. But I also think a lot of men just are giving up. Like I think that just the initiative and the drive and the ultimate, objective is harder to actually see. The end result is harder to see. Um, the student loan problem is gigantic. So like it's getting harder for people to carry the debt, particularly because they're not actually going to do anything. I think one of the biggest problems is that the majority of college degrees are not necessarily profitable. So you're going to college and learning to be creative by way of creating a side hustle or a business is almost impossible because it just wasn't even on the agenda. Like your idea was I would get a job after I got a degree, but nobody told you there's not really a high paying job for most of those degrees unless they're kind of technical in nature. Like there's obviously like the IT section should get jobs, computers, graphics, a lot of those should get jobs, nursing, medical, like they should get jobs. But a lot of the social sciences can be iffy, like that. I mean, there's a
Well,
lot of
even
stuff,
English.
definitely English. I mean,
Well,
if
the
you're,
humanities, the
yeah,
soft sciences, all that kind of stuff, unless it's STEM.
yeah,
And I
like
think our
we're,
parents don't have the same background to be able to give us good advice about it, because so much is changing so fast that a lot of the young people have to figure it out. And plus, the millennials want more flexibility and want remote and maybe don't want to sit at a desk 40 hours a week. So they're the wants of the employees. And then a lot of people are retiring. So It seems like companies might have to cater more to the younger people than they traditionally would have because they need the people to join their companies,
Well,
um, but
and
the employees are
even as you're,
different.
yeah, well, even as you're speaking, I'm hearing a lot of young people just don't believe it anymore, right? I mean, that's the ultimate fallout is like they just don't believe it anymore. Like there's not a there's not a direct correlation to if I go through this process, I will come out with something and it will
Well, they
make
used to
sense.
have pensions, they used to have job security, and now they're like, well, it's at will for the companies too. Maybe we have you sign a 6 month contract, but we can fire you tomorrow. We don't have the same responsibilities and obligations that you might in a relationship that was respectful.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the at will has existed a long time, but it's kind of gotten worse. And there are coming out with more agreements like non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements, non-compete agreement,
Non-competes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
non-compete agreements. And 1099s are more popular. I mean, I use a lot of 1099s just primarily because the paperwork. I mean, it's like, but I
The
also believe,
taxes, and then the gig people have to work a lot of hours, but they don't get insurance. So there's a lot.
yeah, well, and I think that even as you talk about benefits, they're harder to set up than they used to be because they're way more expensive than they used to be. You
Mm.
know, it's not like you can just set up a family insurance plan anymore or a business family insurance plan anymore. Like they're super expensive. And so we have to like channel people towards different benefits. So I think what we're identifying is there's a lot of variables that create the environment of things being definitely not predictable anymore and not ideal. So where even before COVID and before insurance changes and a lot of that, you still had to be somewhat flexible and say, well, what am I going to do with this really expensive art degree or English degree or philosophy degree? And now you say what could happen, but there's also a tremendous amount of flexibility just in life, like in general, where a lot of those things can find places for jobs, but they're not like I think like what you're insinuating is it's not going to be at maybe a place that you thought was predictable or like was on your radar. The question is, how do you find the
You
stuff
have
off
the
your
freedom
radar?
and not the stability.
Yeah, and sometimes the question is, how do you create it? Because what I also find interesting is you look at like Instagram Reels and other kind of TikTok type stuff. I'm actually never been on TikTok, but I see that stuff shared with Instagram. But
Oh,
people will
TikTok. Okay.
but like influencers in those areas are actually making money. So like now you have like a stoic philosopher or a person who's able to at least highlight stoic philosophers and they're creating reels and now they're making money because people are clicking and they're getting enough following and they're getting enough traction. So we used to not be like who would ever really follow stoicism, generally before Instagram and Facebook or I mean before Instagram and TikTok.
Because
Like
people want the 3 minute version, they don't want the 2 hour version.
yeah, but the fact that they're now getting, like reels on, Socrates, but he's not a stoic. I mean, others, it's surprising how like that was part of a niche that somebody took advantage of and said, this is possible to share. And now they're
Mm-hmm.
influencers. Now they're getting followings. Now they're getting connection and traction. So I think the question is, how do people explore what they just hadn't considered? And I think as we've talked about some of our ideas in regards to starting up a business, a lot of times that is the catalyst is having the need that is triggering the intuitive process to say, I need to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The that phrase, I need to solve a problem, comes up all the time in Future Proofing Yourself, which is a book that you can check, anybody can check out. It's got a great, this is the book where the author said, I'm going to help somebody become a millionaire in 1 year. And he did it.
I read it.
Yeah. But there's a whole section there on ask every day, what, what is the problem here? What could I solve here? Like, for example, one time I went to a sandwich shop and one guy in the sandwich line was just tremendously efficient, like just, he was getting through his job over and over and over and over and over and over again. But yet at the end, where the guy was supposed to finalize kind of the process, he was not getting his job done. And there was like 30 or 40 people waiting for their sandwiches. And I eventually said to the guy going super fast, I said, why don't you help the guy who's not getting his job done because do you see all the people waiting? And the guy was initially offended that I would bring it up. But I'm like, look, I'm not, I like this place. I'm not trying to make it personal.
You're
I
doing
said,
a good job.
yeah, like you're doing amazing, but you're not seeing that this is the other problem, right? And as soon as they could finish that gap, now they became profitable. People are happy. They get customer satisfaction, et cetera, right? But I think that that comes up in that book specifically by way of how do you solve a problem because there could be a way to make money there. Or if efficiency makes money, that is also important because you just save somebody else money by being more efficient. But there's another book, I think it's called like 100 startup ideas or 100 something like this. And in the book, it goes through a whole bunch of like simple startup ideas that were fairly low cost. Like it was maybe it's like 100 startups for $1, something like that. I can't remember the name of the book,
Wow.
but one of
That's
the
like
other,
the trade up guy, like trading the paperclip and he got to the house.
yeah,
You can start with the dollar. I
no,
mean, your teenager could try every job in the book and then pick the one he likes the best.
absolutely. But one of the key catalyst points in that book was every one of the people doing the startup had just lost their job and they didn't have an immediate segue to a new job.
And it's hard to predict when you'll get your next job.
Yeah, absolutely. So they had the catalyst, i.e., they needed to make some money. They also needed to do it fairly cheaply. And then they were able to just start brainstorming. They're like, I have to solve a problem. And things came to their mind. So you're dealing with the personality who's not like, I guess I don't have a job. I guess I'm going to stop. I guess I won't look anymore. I guess I just have to give up and die. I mean, these are people who are like, I'm a pretty
Oh,
ambitious person. I've just lost my source of income. I'm
yeah.
going to solve this problem. So I think some of it is like, I think college grads are tremendously brilliant, exciting individuals. I mean, they're very charismatic. They're very fun. I mean, the majority because they're young and they're kind of exploring themselves and their lives and their passions. I think there's some of the most ideal entrepreneurs if they can get the right mentoring to say, how do I connect my passions to profitability?
Mm-hmm.
I had lots of ideas in college and nobody told me to start a business. I would have I would have actually thought that would be really fun if somebody had done that. But people also in college stay in their tracks, like they stay in their lanes. Like,
Yes. That's what
and
I'm talking about. They get in a habit of following a path and then they're like, oh, my path just ended.
yeah, well, and it's even so specific that even the professors stay in their lanes. Like when I would go talk to an English professor about like Buddhist literature, they're like, oh, that sounds interesting, but I don't have any specialty in that. Well, the point is that like I'm not saying you had specialty in it. I'm just trying to can we talk about it? Then it's like I don't have special. I'm not competent to talk about that. I don't have any specialty in that. And I think the idea of being eclectic and being diverse and being experimental is that you don't have to stay in the line. You can wander for a while.
Well, and I think some of the best employees are very well rounded. And sometimes somebody might say having a lot of different jobs makes you look unreliable. But I would say a lot of people who stay in a job for a long time find it really difficult when it's time to switch jobs because they haven't had to do very much job hunting and they haven't had to do different um, job description things with different people in different contexts. And it can be kind of a liability to get stuck where it's more difficult for you to be flexible and to do new things.
I totally agree. And I think that like the longer I do agree with the idea that if you're communicating to other employers, I job shop all the time, other employers are going to say, well, that's not a consistent, reliable employee. But if you're kind of breaking out of that box and saying, I'm not sure I want to be just an employee, then it's highly relevant to diversify and say, like, I'm looking for the thing that just gives me passion and is fun. And so
Well, and if you can explain the reasons why you left, and you're not jumping out after a few months. You can have really good reasons for taking a new position or going to a new gaining new skills, going to a new place. As long as you can explain it in a way that makes sense, that helps.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that an employee who's been somewhere 50 years, maybe they're a good employee, but maybe they're also very passive and unadventurous, and they're just like, I just stayed because I was paying the bills, and that's it. And yeah, my job sucks, and I couldn't wait to retire so I could go do something I love. And I think if you're gonna wait 50 years to go do something you love, that sucks. Like I think that that's really unfortunate because like there's those people who work 80, like I have an uncle who's 80. He's still working for the government. He could have retired like at least 15 years ago. And he just doesn't know what to do. He has plenty of retirement, plenty of savings, like he's super, super frugal. And yet I don't think he'll ever spend it because like he just doesn't even have time to spend it all, right? Like there's like he couldn't go on enough vacations, and he's just not the type of person who would. But that's why you saved it all. like you, like you.
But maybe if he stopped working, he would die just because
It's
he
true.
doesn't know what to do.
No, it's totally it's totally truthful. And what's interesting is he's been an industrious person his entire life. Like he's always been community minded. He's always been service minded. He's always been church minded. He's always been very like work oriented minded. So
He
there's
might
not,
get really sad that he didn't have his community and his social interactions every day. He might drive his wife bonkers. Like, there are probably a lot of good reasons for him to work.
yeah. Well, and I think one of the things is because he is such an exploratory person, he's in a subject matter he appears to like.
Mm.
And so in his mind, it's not necessarily like he is at work because he's always working on something that is of interest to him, which is also valuable.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, but but the point of but there's also like two different questions, right? Like if I'm in something I love, there's really no need to retire, right? You are doing something you love.
But maybe he needs to write a book about it or something, and he can't because he's working.
Yeah, well, he works for the government. I don't know if they'll let him write a book about it. You never know.
Okay, well, and it's not my place to tell him what he needs to do, but you're right, there might be other parts of his life that he would like to explore before he's gone.
Yeah, maybe. And I mean, there was a lawyer in St. George who he was a lawyer till he died, and he was in his 80s. Like, but he just couldn't stop. He really enjoyed the analytical process of having people come in and work on their problems. So
And maybe
that's
there are
fine.
other ways to use those skills too. You wouldn't
Sure.
necessarily have to work in the same job to employ those same interesting skills.
Right. So I think if we come back to the graduates or the potential graduates, one of the things that you would want to do is understand, I think that the college degree by itself is a ticket. It has no potential other reference or reason than that it shows people that you completed something. Like it's not, I mean, I don't know what you think, America, but I don't think that, I think just that a person has a degree, to me, when people come to me and they at least have a degree, I don't care about the degree specifically. I
Oh,
only
right.
care, I only care that they completed a degree. Like it shows that they had the initiative to go through a 3.5, 4 year process to be to be kind of focused enough that they could finish something.
Yeah, for sure. And it is a big screener. Employees sometimes can't do work that they're very qualified to do just because they can't answer yes to the question, do you have a degree?
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that it appears at some points to be a rite of passage document
Yeah.
that oftentimes doesn't have as much value as we'd like it to have, but it is to unfortunately somewhat a rite of passage document because it does say you played with the system, you went through the process, and you completed something.
Well, and the other problem is that we have a lot of skilled trades that we need employees for, and people won't do them, even though they're well paying and interesting and whatever. People won't even do it.
Yeah, which is a different point. Like, because if you go to trade school, you're not necessarily going to get a college degree potentially, but the fact that you're authorized to work on a Boeing airplane, that's fairly significant. The fact that you can build computers for HP or Microsoft or Apple, they don't always require initially degrees. They just require competency that shows that you understand the skill to do the thing.
And I would say that some people maybe don't even care as much about employees or employers as maybe even dating. Like serious college women might not find that attractive, or might put in all their dating apps that they only want someone with a college degree.
Sure. So anyway, what I guess if I'm coming back to the point that it's like a rite of passage document, what I'm saying there is that that should not prohibit you from looking at any possible job that might be of interest to you. So
Mhm.
even though you might have English or art or philosophy
Oh, yeah.
or physical science or coaching or whatever, if you want to explore any job out there, like whatever it might be, you can now start to get the experience just by
Mhm.
getting the experience. Like if you want to be um, literally anything, you
Find a
can now,
mentor,
yeah, find a mentor, get on YouTube, get on Instagram, Reels,
read,
whatever.
take free classes,
Yeah, take free
paid
classes, go to the
classes.
library. But so if you have a passion for a thing, no matter what your college degree is, you can start to get the information that would allow you to build expertise in that field. There's so many resources out there that if you got a mentor and you got some practical education in regards to the thing, you could get a job in it.
And maybe you start on a job that's tangentially related. So maybe um, it requires a lot of specialized skill, but you do a couple rungs down, and then you keep adding until you get to that job.
Yeah, and if in the book Think and Grow Rich, there was one guy who just showed up at the place of employment and just says, "I want to work for you," and the person's like, "We're not hiring," and the person's like, "But I want to work for you."
I hear that works.
Yeah,
That parachute book has things like that, like putting your resume up on a job board or sending a lot of paper resumes out is not the way to do it anymore. You need to meet the people, go to the networking events and meet the people.
absolutely. And if you like their products, show that you've invested in the product, show that you've like tasted it, read it, experimented with it, used it.
Respond on their social media. Sometimes the big fans get hired as product people.
Yeah, and so if I was a new graduate right now, it's February, and I'm going to graduate in May, June. I'm going to be creating a list of potential employers or potential jobs that I might want to engage in, and I'm writing down all the different ways that I might connect with them.
So I would get on LinkedIn, put all of your parents' friends in there that know you, see what they do for work, and maybe you can shadow someone or do some kind of informational interview, because you probably know a lot of people that would like to help you and that could give you a lot of good insight into where you want to go to get. Maybe you would decide you didn't want to do it. Maybe you'd volunteer in the hospital and decide that the medical field was not something you wanted to do.
Totally agree, and I think that like you said, getting on LinkedIn and seeing your connections to a potential mentor or to a potential person, and being, I think, somewhat humble and approachable, just saying, look, I appreciate that I'm fairly new to this. I would like to get into what's happening or what's going on. How could I do that in a way that works for you? Um, I mean, I remember America. I don't know if you remember, maybe 6 months ago, a guy reached out and I think we met with him and we totally said, let's do this. And he didn't do anything else. So he took the initiative to be excited to contact, just to reach out and did
About
a cold.
interning, right?
Yeah, it was a cold call intern, like, and we're like, well, let's do that. We'll build it. Let's do stuff. And I think we kind of over inspired it and then thus intimidated the person.
Well, we told him it was his job to figure it out. I don't think that's over inspiring someone. I think he wanted someone who would say, these are the tasks we need you to do. And he needed a little bit more initiative.
Yeah, and so I think coming to that point of, what value are you going to add for me is really difficult, because somebody's like, well, I'll just add value. Well, how are you going to add that value? What are you going to do, or what could you do? Because maybe it's very little initially.
The
Um,
people that want to work at the zoo have to shovel dung for years.
yeah, that's great. It's true. Um, but I think the point of, if you have a person who is willing, like, go with it. You know what I mean? Say, like, particularly if you're going to volunteer, like, because this guy was going to volunteer for all that, that doesn't cost me anything. I'm totally willing to work with a volunteer. Like, whatever I can do to build your resume, to build your credentials, to build, because I've definitely done that for a lot of people. They'll say, well, I need to get some experience in this. I'm like, great, let's sit down and create a plan around that. I don't have any, it doesn't benefit me. I don't know what it is, but I would be willing to play around with that idea if that helps you get experience, and we'll show you, whatever. Like some people wanted, they wanted to have some criminal law experience, I think, at one point. So we did some stuff there, and other people have wanted to have mediation experience, and even America, we've done that together. Is just, how do I get into the mediation side of what you're doing? Great, let's just do it. Depending on what it costs me or doesn't cost me, then that would definitely increase my likelihood of being able to put somebody where they want to get experience.
I appreciate that. I've had some very good mentors that have taught me a lot of important things. And even working for not very much income has been very useful because of what I've learned. So sometimes you just have to decide that the experience and the income is not the highest priority for you.
Yeah, well,
You
and
can get paid in other things besides money.
absolutely. Like, I remember when I was a kid, we had the opportunity to work at Camp Lowell, which was a scout camp up in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I would make half the money I normally made during the summer working, because I worked sheet metal fabrication.
Mm.
And so it wasn't an easy sell to my parents, and I never got to work there, but I didn't care about the money.
I
Like,
worked
I
there.
did you?
Not at that place, but I worked at a girls' camp at Brighton Girls Camp, made not very much, but it was a really great summer.
Yeah, and you learned a lot of fun skills, because and like, not even joking, like, high adventure activities now very profitable. Like, if you know how to teach somebody to kayak, if you know how to do rappelling, if you can do rock
Mm.
climbing, if you can do um, you know, belay on and belay off, like, those are very specific skills that people have to be certified in now, even to climate gyms. Um, like, if you can teach all that, that's a job.
Mm-hmm.
I had a former law partner who, before he became a lawyer, taught. He organized and took people on kayaking trips in New Zealand, and he kind of created
Oh,
it.
that's a cool place to kayak. I did that.
Okay.
They have fjords. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, well, I never did that, but I've been to parts of New Zealand, and I agree that it's such a beautiful place. But the point that I thought was cool was, I think he's since retired as a lawyer, and now has gone back to just giving people guided tours down rivers, like the Snake River, and up in, also in Sun Valley, he does some rivers there, and I think it was just more about, he wanted to live the way he wanted to live, which was giving guided tours.
Part of that is before you take out giant student debt, look at how many years that might affect or how that might affect your future. Sometimes you can get a degree that costs a lot less and have more flexibility in the jobs you take later. That came up earlier. And then a lot of people will say, I don't have any marketable skills, but if you speak native English, you have a skill. Like, there's people assemble shelves on YouTube and people watch those things. Anything you know how to do at all can be something people will pay to get a tutor. Um, you know, walking dogs, there are things people will pay. And if you can get niche in there and get really talented and meet the needs of the customers, you don't have to have years of experience doing some technical skill to be able to make money doing something.
And I guess what I'm also hearing you saying is that sometimes just starting a YouTube channel where you just say, this is something maybe everybody knows how to do it, but I'm going to do it just to show you that I can do it. This is
Well,
how
I
I
would
come.
say that I was giving that example, not that you would make money on YouTube, but that people can do really simple things and you could do those simple things in person.
Yeah, well, I think the idea even of YouTube a lot of times is to create lead generators, right? So if you say
Yeah.
I'm in the Seattle area and this is how I do a simple mold cleaning, um, like I can help you with this process.
Is there a simple mold cleaning?
There actually
Please.
is. I have a shower that um it just seems to incubate the steam, like it
Oh,
doesn't ventilate very well.
yeah.
And so I looked up how to remove like mold, shower mold.
Mm.
And it was a guy in New Zealand, which would be in the kind of a similar climate to, Oregon and Seattle. And he just showed this how you create a bleach cleaner and you
Hmm.
just spray it and you come back in an hour and you wipe it off. And it was
That's
that
so
simple.
useful. And now you can search those things because we have the search engines. So back in the day, if you made a video like that, no one could find it.
Yeah, and I
But
think
now
it
you just type in, I need this thing, and somebody can explain it to you.
yeah, and I think that, like that's what I'm saying is like if a college student just creates, maybe they just have a lot of little knacks that their parents or grandparents showed them. This is how you get a jammed nut off a bolt or whatever.
Or or you partner with someone. You're the videographer. You're the one who gets it up on YouTube and you get some person that's older that has a lot of good knowledge and you facilitate the content creation.
Absolutely. Well, and then what you're identifying there comes into the book, this, the spider and the starfish, the idea of collaboration. I think that a lot of times younger entrepreneurs get lost in the idea that they need to make all the money or there's not enough money to go around. But if you
Mhm.
start up processes that have a shared distribution and you just create volume and everybody makes money or your system makes money, like everybody's happy if everybody's making money. If you're just like,
Yeah.
I just need to make the money, that is going to be a problem. Like that will have its limitations, that will not help. Like you have to be able to say, I'm saying this from personal experience with adults who are in their 50s and 60s who are fighting over how they were going to divide money for a potential business that had not made any money at all. And it wasn't even organized because they couldn't get over their profit sharing discussions, but they made no profit. So like it never ever made profit. These are, 50s and 60s. So these are grown people who should have learned to play nice. So if you can learn in the very beginning, this is how we're gonna like, this is what's gonna happen, and we're just gonna distribute stuff, and like everybody gets some pie. It doesn't have to be equal. It's okay to say like, what is my contribution? Maybe I shouldn't get, a third or 50% or whatever. If there's a whole bunch of people playing ball, it's more important that the thing is happening and you have options to residual money.
But also be careful about the character of the people.
Absolutely.
Because if you're working with good people, that can work out okay. And if you're working with terrible people, that situation might really burn you.
Yeah, and I think that, you bring up a good point, America. Like if somebody is the capital partner, that somebody's bringing in the money for your
Yeah.
collaborative project or for your collaborative thing, do not just trust people. Like there is plenty and plenty and plenty of times and experiences and friends who are no longer friends because they just trusted people and they just thought it would work out. But you're both in a spot at a beginning where you have no assets, you have no ability to take care of a lot of that stuff. Like $500 might be a lot of money for you at this point. So I would make sure that you have a third party or a mentor or somebody involved, like, for example, a lawyer or a nonprofit that specializes in this stuff that helps you budget or plan the money
Yeah.
so that you don't ruin your friendships over your experiments.
Right. And there are a lot of people you can learn from in how to scale. So you need to test your idea small and then make a lot of mistakes early so that you don't invest a lot in a situation that's not a good long-term fit.
Absolutely. Well, and also there's the exit strategies, like you might have something that's happening and you're just not exactly sure what role you play in it and you kind of want out of it, or you're going to be forced out of it because of just factors or whatever's going on. Um, Having the help of mentors like lawyers and nonprofits that help in this area helps you come up with like this is your buyout option. This is the way you get out of this project. But it also, like, if you take out loans that you can't afford, there could be some negotiation strategies to help you get out of or strategically pay back debts, or unfortunately you may have to pay bankruptcy. But if you come in with a mentor who helps you with the process and the plan and the budgeting and the financial outlay, then you can avoid a lot of those learning curves.
Well, and you can play Monopoly and you can play, do you know the Robert Kiyosaki game? What's that one? Cash flow? Like
Yeah, I've
play
I've
cash
heard.
flow. Like you can develop those skills without making the big mistakes with the big money.
Yeah, there's definitely experiences or practicum stuff that is hypothetical in nature, like games or even online gaming stuff that helps. Like even my kids, there's that, I think it's called Food Diner game, in which kids learn they are employed at a restaurant or at a
Mm.
diner, and they have to cook hamburgers and make hamburgers and get them to the customers in a certain time period. And there's like the little measurement that's showing customer
My
satisfaction
10-year
going
old
down.
likes that game. I think she does it with pizza, but yeah.
Yeah, but I'll sit and talk to my kids about that. I said, no, I said this is not magical. Like this is not fictional. Like people actually do get upset when the hamburger is not prepared. And so sometimes when we go to restaurants or we go to diners, I'll say, do you see the customer satisfaction thing going down? Like how do you feel about the delay in this process right now? It creates very practical understanding of this is the game, this is the process.
I went to a place one time where we had a giant group and they had us waiting for an hour and didn't get us any food. And I was like, I'm never coming back here ever, ever, ever again.
Yeah, and that's isn't that sad?
I just couldn't even believe it happened. We had like 12 or 15 people. We might have had 20 people. We had a bunch of people and they didn't take our orders. They were like, oh, we're going to go take the orders of these other people. Oh, we have these other people. And I was like, why aren't we getting up and going to a place that will give us some food?
Well, I'll shout out for R&R Barbecue in Bountiful. I ordered nachos as part of my order last night because we had 10 people.
Mm.
Before I finished ordering, the guy says your nachos are ready. And because
Oh,
you ordered them at the you ordered everything at this cashier's thing, and then
at the
so I thought, well, that was nice because I
nice.
could immediately take the appetizer to everybody, and they could start eating something, and they felt like the rest of it was fine.
And
But
then you'll tell other people about it, right?
yeah, I think another thing that people, if you're a college student and you're in your last semester, this may not be an option. However, the concept could still be an option of looking for study abroad or interns that you get credit for that will do a transition. So, like in your last semester or in your second to last semester, if you can get an internship that allows you to transition into employment after you've worked,
Mm-hmm.
that happens all the time. So, um, every department in a university has the option to employ interns. Like that's part of their process is to have interns. Um, we accept interns also, and we're connected to two universities at this point. So anybody who wants an
Well,
internship,
name them.
yeah, Weber State and Utah Valley Community College, Utah Valley University, um, any of those students, but even any college in the United States, we could definitely help. I don't know internationally, but if anybody at any university said we would like to intern with these people, we would give you an internship. And the nice thing about an internship is it's somewhat customized. So, I mean, some places might say, well, we definitely need people to do this. But I went on an internship to DC
I
during
did
my
too.
during my process in college, and they just kind of made it up. And I had a variety of projects. So because they were a government contractor and they had a bunch of other different contracts, they would just say, "We need you to do this today. We need you to do this today. We'd like you to go attend this thing today. We'd like to go explore, you know." And because I was not perfectly free, but um, I was able to get into a lot of things and have some fun experiences.
I did a similar thing too. It's really useful because you have the organization behind you and they have events and they have ideas for you. I worked for the creator of the National Foundation for Adoption and also for a nonprofit group um, called the Heritage Foundation that did a lot of public policy. It was a very good experience and I got paid little. The first semester I was out there, I made $20 a week.
Nice.
It was so valuable though. And it was a big wake up for me. I left a really structured environment in college and kind of being out on my own without the support of a more organized study abroad program was really disorienting and difficult for me.
Yeah, I went with Paltech, which was Planning and Learning Technologies. That's what it stands for, and they were doing kind of world development technologies. So they're helping development countries.
Mm.
But my wife came out, and one of the contracts that they had was with Head Start, and so she was involved in a lot of Head Start stuff, Head Start event planning, putting together curriculums. They went to conferences.
Wow.
They had, you know, so another person who was connected with Paltech, she was connected to it had a literature component with the kind of the, I think it was a journal, like a foreign, you know, the like foreign service journal or something like that. So you just never know, like what how you might be connected to things. But once you
Well,
get
here's
out
how
there,
I
you can
got
have,
my internship. I think that might be useful for some of these guys. A professor came and shared something in one of my classes. He wasn't my regular professor. He just came in and said, "Hey, these are some thoughts." And I went to his office and talked to him, and he got on the phone and he called his buddies in Washington. And they said, "Come on out. We will find stuff for you to do."
yeah,
This professor that came and presented on my class didn't know me. He just said, "I think you would be good in Washington."
yeah, I
I think
totally, and
I mentioned something about public policy and
mhm.
he just sent me out there and I did a good job. My internship was extended. So I did one semester and the guy said, my supervisor said, "We're creating a new internship program and we think you're a good candidate." That one paid better. I also had a job offer from my other internship and I chose to go this direction, but and the
Well,
next thing I did for a year, I met a presenter at a professional conference. I was his volunteer at the professional conference, and then I went out to New Jersey and worked for him for a year. That was just a contact as a volunteer at a professional conference.
well, and I think the nice thing about interns is that you get a whole bunch of credits. Really, like they're just like you get 18 credits or some 15 to 18 credits, and you don't really have to study. You just go to work every day.
I actually was kind of frustrated by that because I had to pay tuition, but I don't know, I didn't need the credit. And then I ended up dropping the credits for my Washington internship because they had a lot of extra things they wanted me to do that were taking away, they were stressing me out. So I just dropped that one credit class or whatever it was.
Yeah, I did not do any other coursework when I was on my internship. So mine was I just explored DC and it was really cool.
That's a really that's a place that a lot of ideas come and there are a lot of interesting people. I've also lived I mentioned New Jersey, it was right by New York City. I've lived on the West Coast by San Francisco, and some of those hubs are, even if you don't end up living for a long time there, being exposed to different people and different ideas and different, I mean, the environment of DC is not in other places. So it's valuable to go to some other places too. you were talking about studying abroad. I studied abroad too. Going out of the country and learning the way people live and do things, it might turn into something really valuable for making money too. Like if you learn things about another place, you can share those things, or a language, you can be some kind of a mediator between people from different cultures. There's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I did a degree in Australia, and while I was getting my degree in Australia, my wife did it concurrent enrollment studies through Weber State in the same university in Australia. So she
How
got
did she
two.
even know that was a thing to do?
I don't remember how we did it, but like they said, they invited her to study also, and so she was able to connect with Weber State to do concurrent
Wow.
enrollment, and we were both able to get U.S. um, financial aid to attend foreign
Were you
schools.
really?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it was very cool, and we took our two kids, like we had two kids at the time, and so it worked out that my wife went to school during the daytime and I went to school at night. And so I hung out with the kids, and like we'd go to the beach and we'd go to the pool, and we just, and I'd get my studies done. But yeah, it was very cool to just
And
kind of,
that's a non-traditional path that worked out really nicely for you. And sometimes, even to have those ideas, you might have to talk to people that have gone down different paths. So if you're looking to be really structured, you talk to those kinds of people, and maybe you or your parents or somebody else, an acquaintance, knows a person that did it a different way, and that can give you ideas about possible options.
totally agree. I mean, and there's so many ways that you can do that stuff now. Like it's amazing. Like with I mean, we have done Zoom sessions with people in Namibia or Namibia.
Namibia. It's
Namibia.
Zambia. That's why it's confusing, because they're similar.
Yeah, Zambia, and then we did, but ours was with Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also had Zoom sessions with people in New Zealand and like Australia, and so like London, like there's just not there's no longer the prohibitions. Like I have to travel to this place in order to engage in a process with them.
That's
Now we get
also a downside, because you don't
yeah
have to. But my daughter's going on a study abroad this summer to Ecuador, and her department has a grant that will pay for some of her expenses. So sometimes college students might even say, I can't afford to go on a study abroad. It's too much money, but the amount she actually has to come up with is quite low considering the month she's spending in Ecuador. So
yeah
there's money.
yeah I agree. Well, and my daughter just mentioned yesterday that um she had a professor who was asked if he would like to write a textbook. And so he said to her class, are there any students who'd like to help me write a textbook?
Woo.
And so, so because my daughter said yes, then they were able to apply to get grants for that. And then she was able to get some money to pay her to help write a textbook. And she's going to get some credit. Like she'll be cited, for writing her
Dang.
textbook.
And now
Yeah.
she knows how to do it. And when she learns other good content, she can write another textbook, and college students can, uh, oh man, so much money for textbooks. That could be good money.
Yeah. Well, it definitely could because like they're relevant for like one semester and then they're out of stock.
I mean, but maybe you sell it online. Maybe they don't even have to buy a physical textbook anymore, and you just update it online. So,
No, I don't. I have no idea what that process would be. I mean, I know that she's in neuroscience, and so there's a lot of involving information about the subject. But just being able to get inside the publication of a book creates that's like resume stuff.
yeah. And so a lot of people in their early jobs don't make records of the projects they work on. And those are very valuable when you're looking for your jobs later. So if you can keep a record of these are the things we accomplished, especially if you have some numbers involved, like we saved this much money, we, you know, put on this big event. If you collect those things and keep them, like LinkedIn, but if there are ways that you can show that competence that can help you it can translate into real money later when you have those records.
Yeah, and when you create a resume, that's another good point. Like that you should have an active resume, should know what's on it or what's not on it, because you can you don't have to include everything as a business. Like the business stuff isn't just what goes on your section. Like if somebody's looking for experience and you've lived on a ranch your entire life, there's not going to be a degree in ranching. But because somebody knows you know how to like, change all the water and to manage the cattle and get the feeding done and all that stuff, like that's super relevant to a ranching job or to, even maybe cow ranch, because now when ranchers come in and somebody's looking for, the best ropes or the best whatever, the best product for their cattle, the fact that
Mhm.
you're a rancher, like now you're in, and
So one important thing too to remember is you have to do stuff, because now you have kids that their parents do lots of things for them and then they sit around and they play video games, and maybe video games can be relevant in some jobs, but there's a lot to be said for in your teenage and college years trying things, participating in clubs, going out and doing activities and events and whatever. Like, try stuff.
I totally agree that you should try stuff. I mean, and it's the chance to just say, I've never tried this. Like, why don't I? Because one of the things that comes up in a lot of the literature is you do get jobs and advancement from the places you hang out. So, like, if you want to own a Lamborghini, for example, or you want to, like, are you where people hang out with Lamborghinis? Like, if you have a, if you want to, end up on a yacht, are you where people hang out that end up on yachts? Like, for me, I love to end up in like national parks. So that's where I end up. Like I appreciate that my desires for, certain things, like they're not as important as just my freedom of life to get out into the woods. So and that's totally fine, right? We don't have to have the same corresponding values. Like some people might like, I just want to be in a book library. That is completely awesome. But if you want to open up your own bookshop, that is harder. Like there's like people have to come up with different ways to make a bookshop work.
Well, and
Library.
maybe you want to work for some kind of social cause or something, and you can spend some time feeling like you're getting meaning in your life from contributing to an organization that helps a certain group of people.
Well, and I just went through Kanab, Utah, and there's like this gigantic preserve for stray animals. So their mission was to avoid having animals killed.
Mm.
So they have this gigantic preserve down in Kanab, and I think the nonprofit's called Best Friends, and so they opened up a motel and a little mercantile shop.
Oh.
So people who want to travel with dogs can go there. So they do get some for-profit money from the, I don't know if it's actually, they get fee for service money from the people who stay at the motel. They
Okay.
get fee for service money from the people who buy the merchandise and the products inside the mercantile.
Mm-hmm.
But they also are nonprofits, so they get grants from humane societies, etc., and they can accept all kinds of volunteers, and it's just to save animals so they're not killed. Um, like that's
That's another good idea, is that you can, there are organizational combinations that can allow you to get profit and nonprofit things working together.
totally agree. But I guess what struck me about the nonprofit in Kanab was that it's a very fundamental, just like somebody said, I don't want my dog to get killed if it goes to the pound. And so they had to ask a question, well, where could they go? And so they could go to the middle of nowhere. But as long as somebody was in the middle of nowhere to kind of manage that process and to kind of make it like animal friendly, then it solved the problem. Now, they have lots and lots of followings just because it's a simple thing. Like, I don't want this stray animal to be killed.
Well, let's talk for a second about communicating that too, because if it was out in the middle of nowhere, that might limit their access to uh people knowing about them, right? The just that visibility.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So if
definitely
you,
before the internet, right?
right? But if you have a message like that and you can get it out there in multiple channels, then people, like-minded people, can support you in various ways. Maybe they'll plan a trip to go see your fun animal preserve out there.
I think
But
my wife is going to do that. She's going to go down there with my girls because they all love animals. And the cool thing is that the animals that go there are not just dogs and cats. Like any animal that is considered a stray or just like out in the wild that is
it's
maybe
a domesticated animal that needs a sheltered environment.
correct that doesn't fit in a perfect system anymore. Like I think they even had some wild animals that just became problematic because they domesticated.
Yeah. But you're not going to go?
Well, I just stumbled upon it. So it was the kind of the point that I mean, I was there. I bought them shirts, I bought them stuff. I jumped into it because I'm like, I know that this is a symbiotic, like this is a place that my family would connect. But I know that I wouldn't need to go down to an animal place and just hang out with a bunch of animals. Like I would not after a
Appreciate.
while after a while, like I have nothing against animals, but I just wouldn't naturally just want to hang out with a bunch of animals
But
indefinitely.
the people go there and interact with these animals. So they're like, you, it's a petting zoo.
Potentially, I don't know. I didn't go into it, but the main thing is that it's a sanctuary, so they're not killed. I think some could even be adopted. I mean, I know that there's processes like that. All the animals are spayed and neutered so that they can't, like because even like feral cats, like they definitely keep showing up everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just super cool. And I guess what I'm mainly saying by that is that if you ask a question and you say, I need to solve this problem, it might be surprising how many people want to solve that problem too, and you build from that.
You don't have to do it by yourself. You can think of the idea and work with other people.
Right. Well, I think this has been an excellent discussion. I think it's been fun. I hope that the graduates out there, they have a great career, but also that they take a lot of the things that we've explored and they build upon them. And we'd love to have interns. Like if anybody says, I got some ideas, I love what you guys talked about, definitely come to us. Like we will help you build your business. We will help you be
And you
profitable.
can get paid for it. I mean, people can use your business and you can get paid for that. The internship will be unpaid, but you can build something that you'll own and that will make money for you.
And we will help you make your own money. Like, I mean, we
Yes.
help people make money. We help people be profitable. But we love what we do. This is exciting for us. We love to help people become self-reliant and sustainable in their own systems, whatever they're doing, help them fulfill their passions. So I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Travis.
Okay. See you guys.